Hello and welcome to Hug and the Snug, where today I am joined by Wayne Visser, writer, speaker, academic and advisor, and we are going to talk about how we separate economic growth from negative impact. Wayne, Hug and the Snug, can we have a hug?
Of course.
And would you like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Sure. Well, I started out my life working with business and always had a concern about the impact of business and could it be positive as well as dealing with the negative impacts. And so today my company Kaleidoscope Futures does that work, advises business, tries to keep at the leading edge of thinking. And I try and capture that in my books. So my 23rd book now, Sustainable Frontiers, is just coming out in June. And that's more or less what I do.
23 books, that's quite an achievement. So I think you're going to be quite the authority for us to discuss our topic today. And I guess it's a key question in sustainability debate of, how we handle the fact that we seem to need to have economic growth, but we need to have that without any negative impact. I guess my first question would be, wouldn't it be better just not to have growth?
Yeah, and we had this debate very vigorously in the 80s and 90s. So-called new economists were saying, let's aim for zero growth or even negative growth because that's the only thing that the planet can handle. It's a limited, finite planet. And unfortunately, that just doesn't work politically and it doesn't work psychologically. Somehow we need to feel that there's growth, that there's improvement, that there's expansion. And so the question then becomes, what type of growth? And I like the way Jonathan Porritt, leader of Forum for the Future and one of the founders of the Green Party decades ago, he says we've got to distinguish now between smart growth and dumb growth. And so we do need growth, but it needs to be a different kind of growth.
Okay, so what is smart growth? How do we define that?
Well, smart growth is growth where you're able to decouple the impacts of that growth from the benefits. So in other words, you want all the benefits of growth, so we improve our quality of life, we get things that we want, but we're able to do that without the impact on the resources, the finite resources of the planet.
And how can we do that? How can businesses do that?
Well, there really is only one way, and that's to adopt what has been called variously cradle to cradle or the circular economy or the zero waste economy. And it's a very simple idea, and that's that whatever you use in production and in consumption has to go back into the process. There has to be nothing that we throw away that doesn't either get absorbed back into nature or go back into the production cycle.
And is this something that businesses are already achieving? I mean, how far along that journey are we?
Well, in fact, 20 years ago, we might have thought it was an impossible dream. But today, we have many companies that are getting very close, demonstrating that this is possible and that there are massive benefits. One of the pioneers was Interface, a carpet company. In 1994, they set Mission Zero, and they're on track to meet that by 2020. You get big companies, big brands like Fuji Xerox, which has reached 98.5% recyclability of their products in Asia. And you get companies like Nike, big brands that have adopted this as a philosophy for their company. They call it considered design. And many people don't even know today that if you buy a shirt that's a Nike shirt, whether it's an Arsenal shirt or a World Cup shirt, that is in fact made 100% by 8 plastic bottles. And so there are many examples now of companies that are doing this.
And with those examples that you've cited, they're really impressive achievements that the companies are making there. But are they, has that affected the bottom line? Are they still delivering the profits? Are they still growing year on year, or has it slowed growth for them in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the companies that have some experience in this will say that they do it at zero cost or actually at a benefit, because there is cost savings that come out of using less materials, which is what a zero waste economy is all about. Even the big giants like Walmart, when they belatedly woke up to sustainability after Hurricane Katrina under CEO Lee Scott, found that the commitment to zero waste was one of the things that drove innovation for them. And we're seeing that many companies can quantify now the benefits. And, it's to give you an example, because sometimes we think this is a Western thing. Adelca, it's a steel manufacturer in Ecuador, and they converted to a technology called electric arc furnace technology that allows them to use scrap steel as their only input, and they can 100% recycle the steel. For every ton of steel that they use as scrap steel as an input, they save 1.5 tons of iron ore, they save energy, 70% I think they save on water, all kinds of inputs, and that's all cost that they're taking out of the system. The lesson from that, though, is that they really struggle to get the initial finance to invest in that technology. So the difficult thing is in the short term it requires investment to change, and then in the medium to long term you see all the benefits.
So you mentioned investment there. I guess my big question would be how can we move this from something that a small group of forward-thinking progressive companies are doing to just becoming the way that we do business? What needs to happen? Will that happen organically because it's just the smart way to do business, because it makes businesses more competitive, or do there need to be more stringent kind of measures put in place? Do we need kind of legislation? Do we need, shareholder demand? How do we shift it to being mainstream?
Certainly it would help if we had more incentives, and incentives mostly come from policy. And so if we look at the European policy now, their Lisbon 2020 strategy, which is a competitiveness strategy, that's based on becoming smart, sustainable and inclusive. And under that there are programs such as supporting eco-innovation. So very important to tie this to a competitiveness agenda and find government ways to incentivize it. They did an experiment where they funded just 125 projects, eco-innovation projects, and the financial returns were massive. So for every €1 that they invested, they got 20 euros back. There was quantified economic and environmental benefits in excess of €1 billion. It created jobs, it saved resources, it saved carbon and water and so on. So it is getting those signals in the market that reward companies for doing this. This is the only way that it's going to scale up.
And okay, final question. If you could wave a magic wand, if you could sort of unlock or break down, let's say, one barrier to the adoption of the circular economy, what would it be? What would be the key issue that you would resolve?
I think probably the main barrier is a mindset. It's a lack of consciousness on seeing how possible this is, seeing how smart this is, and partly it's cultural because we've grown up in a take, make, waste kind of system where we do throw things away without thinking. And so just having the mind shift to realize that it just, that's such a dumb way to run an economy. If we go back to some of the original inspiration, Kenneth Boulding, he was a US economist, talked about the cowboy economy, where we just think there's endless frontiers, versus the spaceship economy, where you actually have to recycle everything endlessly. And so I think reaching that, or having that light switch go on in people's head to say, this just makes such a lot of sense.
Yeah. So really the circular economy is just a smart way to do business. We've just got to be smart enough to realise that.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much, Wayne.
You're welcome.
Thanks.